that I was not of an equal stature to Paul Newman. I liked the other part. And he got intrigued by that. He got interested and then he fought for me to do it. So we met in his apartment in New York. Before closing his eyes for the last time, Robert Redford left behind a confession that shook the world not only about himself, but also about the true face of Hollywood. In the eyes of the public, Redford and Paul Newman were always regarded as the embodiment of a legendary friendship, a golden on-screen duo that every director longed to have. Yet the truth that Redford had kept hidden for decades was something entirely different. It was not merely friendship, but a relationship that crossed every boundary, a bond of emotion that Hollywood worked relentlessly to bury. In his final words, Redford admitted to secret meetings in a remote house in Utah, private moments that led to the two of them being caught in situations far too intimate, and even to the bitterness of Newman's wife, who once openly confessed her jealousy. I felt like an outsider in my own marriage. But what was even more shocking than the relationship itself was the way Hollywood chose to handle this truth. Rumors were suffocated before they could spread, articles were shut down before publication, and an entire campaign of silence was orchestrated to protect the carefully crafted image of the perfect leading man of the Golden Age. Redford acknowledged that he carried the heavy weight of this secret all the way to the end of his life, not only out of fear of public scrutiny, but also because of the overwhelming power of an industry machine that was always prepared to crush anyone who dared to step outside its rigid standards. And now, as the curtain has finally been drawn, the most haunting question is no longer simply whether they were just friends or secret lovers, but rather, how many other secrets has Hollywood concealed beneath the dazzling mask that the world once worshipped without question? Paul Newman was not just my co-star. He was the greatest secret of my life. In 1969, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid exploded like a bomb at the box office, turning Robert Redford from a nobody into a Hollywood A-list star overnight. Yet Redford confessed that the glory of that film was not what haunted him most. The thing that truly lingered, tormented him, and followed him until his final breath was meeting Paul Newman, a moment that he admitted had changed everything. Redford recalled New York in 1968, a city filled with cigarette smoke and blaring car horns, when a timid young man walked into a cramped audition room wearing shoes with worn-down heels and a suit that barely fit. He believed he would never stand a chance beside a star of Newman's stature. But then, Newman appeared, already an icon, his piercing blue eyes cutting straight into Redford's soul. Redford admitted that gaze overwhelmed him, as though he were swallowed whole by a strange and irresistible power. At first, Redford assumed Newman would be distant, untouchable. But the unexpected happened. Newman stepped forward, extended his strong hand, and gripped tightly. "You'll be fine," he said simply. For Redford, those few words sliced through his shell of insecurity, pulling him out of the shadows. And when the studio still hesitated, questioning whether an unknown could possibly stand next to Newman, it was Newman himself who stood up for him. "If it isn't Redford, then I won't do it." That single sentence not only launched Redford's career, but also etched an indelible image into his heart. During filming, Redford confessed he often sat quietly in the corner of the set, watching Newman's every move, the way he cracked jokes to ease the tension, the booming laugh that made the crew erupt with joy, or the moments when he suddenly grew solemn, utterly focused as the camera rolled. Newman was a living paradox, carefree yet serious, lighthearted yet heavy with presence. And it was precisely this duality that made Redford feel both challenged and irresistibly drawn to him. On camera, Newman never tried to overshadow. He knew how to yield, how to let Redford shine, as if the two of them had been rehearsing together for years. Crew members whispered, "They only need to look at each other, and they know exactly what to do." But Redford admitted that uncanny synchronicity was not born solely from the script. It was also fed by an unspoken current, a hidden emotion that deepened with every glance and every unguarded smile, a secret he never dared acknowledge openly when he was young. Off the set, they often sought each other out. Newman would invite Redford for drinks after shooting, sharing stories. No one ever expected a Hollywood A-lister to reveal his fear of failure, the crushing weight of family responsibility, the moments he felt lost, even in the blinding glow of stardom. Redford, who had always been reserved, found himself opening up, exposing wounds he had kept buried. And then, one drunken night in Utah, Newman teased, "You should learn how to look at someone as if they're your entire world." Redford admitted he never forgot that line. It left him stunned, unsure whether it was a casual joke or a quiet message meant only for him. But from that moment onward, he knew he had fallen for Newman in a way that could never be named. It was not merely admiration. It was not merely friendship. It was a yearning for closeness, for the gentle light that Newman carried within him. And in the very last hours of his life, Redford finally allowed himself to say it aloud. "If there is one man I would follow to the very end, it could only ever be Paul." A confession that not only left the world speechless, but also tore away the glittering mask that Hollywood had spent decades carefully hiding behind. After Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid premiered in 1969 and became a box office sensation, Hollywood didn't just talk about the flawless on-screen chemistry of Paul Newman and Robert Redford. People also began whispering another story, vague but far more intriguing. The relationship between the two stars went beyond friendship or colleagues. Audiences at the time couldn't take their eyes off the way they interacted. Newman's gaze toward Redford was too tender, and Redford's smile in return was too natural. So much so that everyone sensed it was not merely acting skill. Some critics even wrote that on screen they seemed like two wandering souls, finally finding each other in a world that belonged only to them. It was this strange authenticity that first stirred public suspicion. Could this be more than friendship? Rumors spread quickly. At glittering parties filled with laughter and dazzling lights, whispers began. Newman, the married star, the symbol of a model family, showed Redford an unusual amount of affection. In contrast, Redford seemed evasive in interviews whenever Newman was mentioned, always smiling and changing the subject. This deliberate silence only fueled curiosity like a half-open door that invited endless speculation. The press was not to be left behind. Tabloids began to embroider, calling them Hollywood's golden couple in the shadows. Writers listed countless small details, the lingering glances on set, the times they appeared together backstage but refused photographs, even the fact that Redford always sat next to Newman on long flights. All of it was stitched together into a hidden narrative, a secret love ballad between the two greatest stars of their era. Then came the backstage stories that further ignited the frenzy. It was whispered that Newman often drove his silver car out of Los Angeles toward Utah, where Redford owned a secluded log cabin in the mountains. These meetings usually happened on weekends when both men's schedules suddenly cleared in oddly convenient ways. The house lights stayed off, curtains drawn with only the crackling fire casting shadows of two men laughing softly. Some neighbors claimed they had seen Newman's car parked at the gate at midnight. He would step out in plain clothes, hat pulled low, moving quickly as if afraid of being discovered. By morning, the car was gone, leaving only tire marks in the gravel, a silent witness. The story didn't